Hey everyone, my name is Kevin Owocki. I am one of the founders of Gitcoin, which is a place that you can get coins if you're working on open source software and public goods. And my talk today is about coordination failures. Public goods and open source software are a form of coordination failure, and that our entire digital infrastructure is built on top of open source software, and there's no business model for individual open source software developers. So I am here to talk to you, Anon. Who you are, Anon, is not super important, other than we know that there are a ton of Anons out there who are between 20 and 40 years old, are computer hackers, and care about building a better world. I want to talk about contemporary coordination failures, and I want to tell you that we can solve them, that we should solve them using Ethereum, and I am going to invite you to join me on the greatest LARP, the fight against Moloch, the god of coordination failure. How does it feel that Moloch is winning right now, that our planet is being polluted? Does it hurt that no one can agree which fucking way is up in the mainstream media? Misinformation reigns, and this is Moloch. How does it feel to have our lives intermediated by a web where surveillance and privacy invading advertising is the way that everything is funded? Human beings in small groups are able to coordinate with each other in order to survive. But as more and more people form larger groups, it becomes harder and harder to have more solid coordination. And this is where Moloch reigns. So there are these situations like our pollution, our open source not being funded, which no individual actor in the system would choose. And for lack of a better coordination mechanism, they persist. And I don't think that there's actually an all-powerful demon, physically Moloch, that is making this happen. But I do think that there's this sort of like psychic manifestation of coordination failures that it's sort of interesting to articulate as Moloch, the god of coordination failure. So every time we think about, I see pollution of a water supply or climate change, I think Moloch. Every time I see misinformation where the incentives of the individual and the incentives of the collective are not aligned, I think of Moloch. When I think about the surveillance web, I think about Moloch. Moloch is winning right now. Our global society has coordination failures everywhere, and it frickin' sucks. I think that what is even worse than the fact that Moloch persists is that we all accept this intersubjective reality that we just need to live with coordination failure. Intersubjective realities are just realities that we all agree on together with our differing vantage points. Like, here is an intersubjective reality. I am raising my hand. Raise your hand if you think that I'm raising my hand. All right. Intersubjective reality that I am raising my hand right here, informed by your empirical seeing me raise my hand, and that person on their phone right there seeing everyone else around them raise their hands. Maybe that's why they did that. So there's this intersubjective reality that I raised my hand that we all agree on, and there's this intersubjective reality that as there's more people in a society, that we need to have more suffering, more coordination failure. And the point of my talk is to say why. Why does Moloch have to win? Why does Moloch have to win? We don't realize that it doesn't have to be this way, and we can create better coordination using Ethereum. I've been really motivated recently by the solar punk art movement. Basically, solar punk is an art movement that imagines that humanity survives and transcends its contemporary coordination failures with misinformation, with climate change, and we can build a better society, that it is possible. It's a reaction to the doomerism that we see in today's society. And so I want to be a part of this movement that I call the Greatest LARP. A LARP is a live action role play, and it's the avatar that we all wear online. It's our face that we put on when we're interacting with building our personal brands. And if we're all gonna fucking LARP all day, why don't we just join the Greatest LARP and slay Moloch? The Greatest LARP begins today. We can literally, in this image, I have Moloch being slayed by a chain of blocks. But I think that metaphorically, we can slay the god of coordination failure if we have better coordination. And guess what? we now have a transparent, immutable, programmable, global substrate for coordination that we can build new institutions that transcend the old places that we failed to solve coordination failures in the nation-state model. I envision that we'll go from the industrial age, in which the primary vehicle for solving coordination failures was the nation state, to the internet age, in which we'll use the internet and DAOs and Ethereum in order to build a better substrate for coordination. And we know that it's all coordination, and it always has been. Okay, so how is this gonna work? Basically, there's a proposed limit upon which the number of people whom we can form stable social relationships is only 5 people for close friends, up to 150 with a tribe. And beyond that, we can't form stable social relationships. Well, Steve Jobs once said that technology is like a bicycle for the mind. It allows you to do more and faster. And so I imagine with Ethereum, being able to build these trustless systems, we can have stable social relationships with more and more people. It's kind of like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but everyone's just connected to more people, and so we could play the 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon in our networks. And this matters a lot because when we're more coordinated, we can solve coordination failures, and it's all coordination, and it always has been. I envision an economy in which we move from just building decentralized casinos that are instantly gratifying, and we move into a bento box of incentives that are focused on what is good not only for me now, but what is good for me later. What is good for us as a society, as LisCon, as the Ethereum community now and in the future. We can build more resilient systems by expanding the axis from personal interest into community interest, and from what's good right now into what's good in the future. This is the bento box of incentives. Our mission at Gitcoin is to make it so that you consumers of open source software who are gaining gratification from your consumption of open source software, but increasing a burden on the collective with the maintainers, we're augmenting those incentives with quadratic funding and making it even more powerful to support public goods using Ethereum, using mechanism design in order to support better coordination, because we know it's all coordination and it always has been. There's a famous example of game theory called the prisoner's dilemma, where basically 2 prisoners are captured and they're separated from each other. The police interrogate them, and they basically offer each of them a deal where they can get out with a reduced sentence if they rat on their partner in crime. And so there's this sort of coordination failure which happens where most prisoners who are separated will end up betraying each other, and they'll both end up spending more time in jail because they don't have an effective means to coordinate. I imagine building, and these are not dissimilar to the coordination failures that I started with. Climate change, open source software are all prisoners' dilemmas, where we're playing this massively multiplayer game and we're all defecting from each other. But what if we could coordinate with each other? What if we could use this transparent, global, immutable financial system in order to change the incentives of the prisoner's dilemma and to make it better to coordinate than it is to defect? That's why, that's one of the examples of things that we can do with Ethereum once we realize that it's all coordination, and it always has been. There are dozens of principles of creating multiplayer games where people cooperate instead of defect, and we could build them all on top of Ethereum if we just learn the best practices. So building systems for the evolution of trust between the participants, repeat interactions between the participants, possible win-wins between the participants, and low miscommunication for the participants. I believe that Ethereum is a selling point for the hopeful. We can start by creating impact DAOs, which are creating the right incentives for coordination in the Ethereum community. And then we can export that to the wider crypto scene and tell them that it will not always just be a decentralized casino forever. We can export what we've learned in our momentum there to build better software systems. We can take down the FANG of the world, and we can build a better world and solve coordination failures, all because we have impact DAOs in Ethereum, the seed, the selling point for the hopeful. And what I imagine is that we re-engineer the laws of economic gravity to make sure that Moloch cannot survive in our human civilization. This may sound impossible or far-fetched, but re-engineering the laws of economic gravity are no different than what the Wright brothers did in the early 1900s when they re-engineered the laws of gravity to mean that we could all fly here today on an airplane. they re-engineered the laws of physical gravity, we can re-engineer the laws of economic gravity to favor coordination over defecting. I think that it's important for us to remember that all coordination is a choice. We can build the best systems in the world, but if you, Anon, do not choose coordination over defect, then we will not be successful in creating a more solar punk world, and we will continue to slide into worse and worse coordination failures. But imagine the opposite of what we could do in the Ethereum and community here. We've got a transparent, immutable, global financial system at our feet. We can build better coordination and solve coordination failures locally. But imagine how much hope that could give to the world if they all start to wake up and see what we're able to do in this community. And man, I would love to end on a more hopeful note, but I think that for us, Anon, we've got our work cut out for us because Moloch is winning right now. Climate change, misinformation, lack of fundings for open source software. We could create a world in which journalism is funded by the ability to create public good, but right now it's funded by advertising. We could create a world in which we fund our digital infrastructure and create a crypto economic incentive for everyone to quit their fucking corporate jobs and go work on open source software. But right now, Moloch is winning, and all of my most talented engineer friends work for Mark Zuckerberg. Moloch is winning right now. So it is with this in mind that I am launching a coordination game along with the Gitcoin DAO called the Greatest LARP.com. The GreatestLARP.com is a coordination game that is a choose-your-own-adventure game where you, Anon, can choose to coordinate and to help us fund public goods and to spread the narrative of what Ethereum and Gitcoin could do for the world, or you can choose to defect and we cannot create a better world. It's a choose-your-own-adventure game where it's a choose-your-own-adventure game about coordination in which we must coordinate in order to win and to turn around this state of the world where Moloch is winning. GreatestLARP.com actually probably started when we launched Moonshot Bots two months ago and were able to raise about $2 million for public goods. We're dropping a series of other NFTs, of ETH bots and of Moloch NFTs, and it's up to the community to mint these NFTs and to choose to coordinate in order to make sure that they all get minted, and then we get to see the version of the world where ETHBot wins. We've got one premium NFT by Colton Orr, a really amazing NFT artist who is going to help us tell this story about how Ethereum can be used to create a coordination mechanism that can fight Moloch, the god of coordination failure. And of course, for the Anthony Sasanos of the world, we've got physical figurines that we're also selling. All proceeds going to public goods. Of course, more NFT projects should be doing that. And so I'm very pleased to announce the second edition of the Gitcoin comic right here, Anon versus Moloch, the story about the greatest LARP. And you can read it for free at greatestlarp.com. And if you're feeling apey, feel free to pick up an NFT or two while you're at it. While I have the stage, I just really want to say that it takes a village in order to create more coordination. Thank you to Josh Baylock, to Colton, to Kitty, to Goyce, to Octavian, to Bliss, Jason Fahim, Austin Griffith, who I wish who could be up here today, but he'll be at LisCon in a day or two. Gitcoin DAO, Moonshot Collective, Ryan and Loey for everything, and to the hodlers of Moonshot Bots and Sacks for believing in the greatest LARP and creation of a better world using Ethereum. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Kevin Owocki. I will be over there giving away Gitcoin swag in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much, and please join me on the greatest LARP. Peace.